Good evening, everyone.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Money School with LaShawn Holland. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today is a beautiful day, or was a beautiful day. Is a beautiful
Still is a beautiful day.
It is. I haven't been outside at all today.
I went out twice and got some fresh air.
Oh, you went out? I didn't see you.
I didn't go far.
Oh, okay. Anyway, thank you guys for showing up. So we want to continue the conversation.
Share, please. Share this video. Host a watch party. Tag your friends.
Host
get
a
some
watch
folks in here.
party, because it's going to be a very educational.
Yep.
At least I think so.
Yep.
A very educational
Hey,
money
D.
school tonight. Hey,
Yep.
niece, how are you? Okay,
Yep.
great. So we can see.
Yep. Glad you're safe. Hey, Wanda Petty.
Hi, Wanda. Hi, Shannon. How are
Yes.
you?
A lot of folks joining us. Thank you so much for joining us
Yes.
on a Monday evening.
Thank you. Hi, Benjamin. How are you? Benjamin, your profile picture always
Yeah.
messing me up, messing with me.
But
Hey,
it's a great
Sheila.
reminder.
It is of how much we loved her.
Yep.
Let's see. Hey, Dawn. How are you? Hey, Vicky. Thanks for tuning in.
Yep.
Hey, Danita. How are you? Listen, so we're going to continue the conversation. Actually, I'm going to be moving this up, so this may be in the way sitting
Okay.
here.
All right.
If someone have a question, you have something that you want to say, Robert can respond because he's looking at it. But today's Money School title really is Bring Back Black Wall Street 2.0. And last week, I had a lot of people send me either direct messages through Facebook or Instagram, or either sent me text. For the people who had my number, sent me text asking me a question about how can we bring back Black Wall Street. And depending on who you were, my answer may have been a little bit different. But for those of you who don't know, Black Wall Street really was about economic independence.
Yes.
And so back then, it would be virtually almost impossible to bring back the original Black Wall Street because times are different, things are a little bit different. But, that's exactly what we do. Black Wall Street represents financial independence. And so that's exactly what we do at the Wealthy Leaders Institute.
Absolutely.
And so, all the time, we've been doing this now for over 2 decades. And so we do,
empower, educate, black business owners, black entrepreneurs.
Everything we do is surrounded around financial freedom, financial independence.
Absolutely.
And financial security. And so here at the Wealthy Leaders Institute, we equip high achieving professionals, with strategies to develop and multiply and maximize wealth through debt elimination, business system creation, and multiple asset class
strategies,
investments. Yes, to achieve generational financial sovereignty. And so that makes up the whole entire Wealthy Leaders Institute. But when we look at Black Wall Street, for those of you who may not know or may not be as informed, Black Wall Street is also referred to as Greenwood. It was in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yep.
And it was a neighborhood containing many African American businesses and, homes in the early 20th century, right? And so it was destroyed by whites in the massacre of 1921.
Yep.
I think it was 1920,
You said it right.
1921,
Yeah.
where a white mob destroyed the homes of more than 6,000 blacks. They were displaced and their businesses. And so the insurance companies refused to pay out the claims and rebuild the homes and the businesses of the African Americans, because as you can imagine, we were right out of slavery, right? People who were freed slaves.
Yep.
One man went to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and long story short, they became friends with the Native Americans that was there. He purchased over 40 acres of land, and he wanted to be able to build. And so they burned it down. Insurance companies didn't pay out. Booker T. Washington, it got its name because Booker T. Washington, we should know who he is. If now, my son was reading through some of this, and he was like, "Mom, history whitewashed our books in school. We didn't learn any of this." But Booker T. Washington was an American educator, author, and an activist. And so he referred to Greenwood, the neighborhood, as the Negro Wall Street.
Yep.
And so where many African Americans moved to Oklahoma with the hopes of gaining quick economic gains, right, through mining and oil industries, because those were really big back then. And so I just want you, as we teach tonight, to really pay attention to the money opportunities that made up Black Wall Street. And so it's not that we're not doing it now, it's just that the playing field is not equal for us. And so when you look at it, like the massacre actually began over Memorial Day weekend. And so it's been 100 years, and it's pretty sad that 100 years later, we're still going through a lot of the same things. But there was a 19-year-old boy, his name was Dick Rowland or something like that. And he was a black shoe shiner. And allegedly, they said that he was accused of assaulting this white girl who was 17 years old named Sarah Page, who was actually an elevator operator in the building. And
does this sound very similar to modern day Central Park? Chris?
Sure, absolutely.
Not Gardner. What's his last name?
Cooper.
Chris Cooper. Thank you.
Okay.
And the lady with the dog, I forget her
Cooper.
name.
Amy Cooper.
There you go. This sounds so similar to that same situation.
Right.
When I read that, it just brought out certain emotions in me as we were studying to prepare for this. When I read that, the only thing I could think about was the destruction started on false accusations. And this is the same thing that we see repeated time after time by, I think Black Twitter has, what do they call them, Karens now? The Karens, the one who cry wolf when things go wrong. So, I just thought it was amazing that Black Wall Street was started on false accusations of a black man.
Right, or the burning down and the destruction of Black Wall Street.
Yep.
But there was a guy by the name of Gurley, I think, and he was a wealthy black landowner.
Yep.
And he purchased 40 acres of land in Tulsa, Oklahoma, naming it Greenwood after a town in Mississippi where he was from. And so he really wanted to try to create a community that was for black people, by black people.
Yes.
Is really what he wanted. And so when people would relocate to Oklahoma looking for opportunities, when African Americans would relocate to Oklahoma looking for opportunities, he would actually loan money to people who wanted to start a business.
Yes, and I think that's important to realize. Right?
That's important to realize. When we talk about bringing back Black Wall Street was about financial independence. Yes. And so again, he would loan money to people who wanted to start a business. I just said a little bit ago, pay attention, follow the money trail. I say this all the time. Numbers don't lie, people do.
Yep.
And so, they actually had a system where someone who wanted to own, a business could come and they could get help and do that. They did not depend on the banking system to do it for them.
That's right.
They did it together.
Yep.
They did not depend on outside help. They wasn't going to get it anyway, because banks back then didn't allow blacks to hold their money in bank. They didn't even want blacks to have any money, but they came together unified.
Yeah, and just to step back for a second, not only was it OW like you mentioned, but one of the guys who got in very early with him was a gentleman by the name of John the Baptist Stafford, or I forget his last name. But anyway,
Smithersman.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, Stratford.
Okay.
JB.
Okay.
Yep. So JB Stratford. Stratford was his last name. So I started wondering, why did they go by these first initials? And what you have to realize is at that time,
just like the banker,
whites would refer to each other by their last name. Well, I didn't see the banker, but they would refer to each other by their last name. But they would refer to blacks like they referred to boys. They would call them by their first name. Mm. So what JB and OW did was they would call each other by their first two initials to be different. So even at that time, we were not treated fairly. But JB and OW worked together. Yeah. Those two came together. He had a very successful black hotel that he built.
Actually, a luxury hotel.
That was better than a lot of the white hotels.
Yes.
Please take note of that. If we're going to do business and we're going to do business together, we have to do it at a higher level.
At a higher level.
Yep.
So actually, what I read was he built a 55-room luxury hotel and branded his name on it.
Yes.
If that wasn't in your face, and it was the largest black-owned hotel in the country.
Yes.
And
Yep.
so
He set a standard.
He set a standard. And
Yep.
so he was extremely outspoken. But one of the things that struck me when, I was reading about him, because I've been studying Black Wall Street for years.
Yep.
Rosewood used to be one of my favorite movies. I literally will watch it almost every single weekend for months straight.
Yep.
But blacks had a better chance of economic progress if they pooled their resources together.
Yes, say that again.
Blacks had a better chance of economic progress if they pooled their resources together.
Can I add one thing to that?
Sure.
Not just pool your resources together, but in some cases you may be pooling with somebody that you don't see eye to eye on every
Absolutely.
issue.
We're going to talk about that.
Because JB and OW, they didn't always agree with how to deal with their Caucasian counterparts.
Yeah.
But one of the things they could agree upon was that they were going to make sure they empower black business.
Right.
Yep.
And then there was another guy who, AJ, very early on, who came. His family moved, I think, in like 1890s or whatever. He founded the Tulsa Star, so they had their own newspaper, which was headed inside of Greenwood, that really became the instrument for establishing black social conscious, the social conscious mindset. And so the newspaper regularly informed of what was going on in the black community. I guess sort of like Black Twitter does now.
Right. Black Twitter before we had Twitter fingers.
Black Twitter before we had Twitter fingers. I remember growing up where my grandparents were members of the NAACP. And so, and by the way, I am too. But I remember my grandmother every evening would open up the magazine and start reading, out of the magazine. So they not only, made their donations, but they stayed socially conscious. And so, again, it was a newspaper. Listen to the types of businesses that they had there. Black Wall Street really was about economic gain. And so, number one, back then they didn't have debt to deal with other than the sharecroppers, because they didn't have credit cards back there.
Right.
Banks wasn't giving them loans for mortgages. If they built a house, they had to pay for it cash and build it themselves. And so things were operated a little bit, a lot differently. But Black Wall Street really was about economic gain. And so you get economic gain through business, enterprise, and investing. Guys, that's all I talk about, And so they built a black economy that was self-contained and self-reliant. And so we talked about last week's Money School. I think it was, I can't remember the name of it, Send Your Friends Home or something like that.
It's a family meeting. It's a family meeting.
But when you think about their economy, they were self-contained and self-reliant. And I talked about how I discovered that there was no industry that African Americans own. And I felt that to be very disheartening. That we have so much buying power in the United States of America. We have a buying power of $4 trillion, but yet we don't own any industry. And so if you want, you can go back and watch that. But money earned on the outside, and not everybody inside of Tulsa, Oklahoma, inside of Greenwood community or Black Wall Street were actual business owners.
Come on, say that.
Not everybody was business owners, but they earned their money on the outside. If they went and they cleaned a white person's home, they spent their money within their own community. And so you can work for the federal government or FedEx or UPS or Microsoft or Google or Ernst & Young and Johnson & Johnson, Verizon, whoever you work for, right? Are you spending your money in the black community? And so you want to know how to bring back Black Wall Street? We're teaching you, this is how you bring back Black Wall Street. And so it was said that within Greenwood, listen, every dollar would change the hands 19 times before it ever left the community.
Can you tell us what it is in the black community right now? This number's disappointing. I should not be laughing because it's really not funny.
A negative 6 hours.
So
that's how long our money stays
before
in
it
our
even gets in our hand, it's already spent outside the black community.
It's already spent outside the black community.
Wow.
And so it was said that, again, 19 times before it ever left your community, which means we did it at a greater rate than even Jewish people
than the
did.
Jewish community does it today, right? Yeah. We got to get back to that. We got to get back to supporting our businesses.
And so
I think it's important you point out, and I just want to echo it. It's important to make sure that we aren't just talking to business owners.
That's right.
You brought that point out. The people who were living in Greenwood, the majority of them were not business owners.
They were not business
but they were
owners.
very well to do because of the oil boom
Yes.
that was going on at the time. They got very good jobs, very high paying jobs.
Yes.
But they spent their money with the black businesses.
With the
They
black-
continued to support the African American ecosystem
Right.
that had been built there.
Right. And so when you look at the businesses that they had, luxury hotels, like are you willing to support Sheila Johnson and, the Salamander brand
Woo-hoo.
hotels instead of going to the Ritz-Carlton?
That's right.
They had newspapers, luxury shops, restaurants, grocery stores, hotels, jewelry stores, clothing stores, movie theaters.
Wow.
How
Wow.
many people, like Magic Johnson doesn't even own the theater anymore because he sold it to be able to buy the baseball team. But how many black movie theater owners do you know? Now would be a perfect time, especially if you people come to me all the time that their families have left them land and they don't know what to do with it and it's just sitting there. Number one, you can't write just land off on your taxes if it doesn't have a building on it. And so put something on it, a business structure on it, so you can have it not only as a write-off but income producing. And during these times right now, having an outside movie theater, other than the cost of a big screen, shoot, you can get some food trucks to come. You don't absolutely have to
Partner.
build.
You can partner with
someone
Yep.
to start an outside movie theater. That's just the idea, and it was for free. But barbershops and salons, and so we have a lot of stylists and black barbers, but are they owning? And so they had their own libraries, they had their own pool halls and bookstores and nightclubs and offices with doctors and attorneys and dentists.
Yep.
They had their own school system, their own hospital, they had their own bus line, their own taxi car service, and they had their own savings and loan bank.
So really, they did not have to leave that area to do any sort of business. Everything that they needed was right there.
And so it took more than just desire for people who how can we bring back Black Wall Street?
Yep.
It took desire and logistics.
Yes.
Like it just wasn't
And a
an
great
idea
visionary.
and a great visionary.
Yep.
And so, if you're serious about being part of the Black Wall Street 2.0, I've been using this hashtag for years now, bring back Black Wall Street. I've been using that for I don't know how many years now. And if you're serious about changing your financial DNA, then you have to get some coaching through it. Yeah. And so these people actually have, when they look at George and JB and, they actually, not only did they lend the people money to start their businesses, they actually coached them because, they were wealthy landowners. And so they would coach them through their business process, which is why they became so profitable. And so when you look at the percentages of businesses today that go out of business in the first 5 years, a big part of it is because they do lack funding or they don't know how to build a sustainable, scalable business. Right. And so even colleges don't teach you this. And this is how I know. My daughter's college that she has been attending for the past, I know this is a sore thumb with you because you're irritated that we've paid, $100,000 in 2 years. Yeah, her tuition is $58,000 a year. And I didn't tell you this earlier. I was actually talking to Q, and his one of the school's administrators in the business department, it's my daughter's boyfriend, and he's starting his own t-shirt line. And they told him that his t-shirts were priced too high. We had this conversation this morning, and I said, she doesn't understand your ideal client. Right. And I was like, and that's the problem. She's teaching at a business school where they have a program for entrepreneurship, and she didn't take the time to even ask him, who's your ideal client? Yep. Your ideal client determines what your
people will spend $300, $400, $500 for a t-shirt. So I know they will spend $35
most definitely
for a t-shirt.
And obviously they haven't gone to know the urban, clothing industry.
That's right.
And so
that's right.
They're not teaching this stuff. I know the things that I teach inside of our program, Born to Multiply and Velocity, they're not teaching in schools.
Yep.
And so if you don't want to start your own business, because not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, I understand that. But but you can still invest in the dream of someone else's, or you can invest in someone else's dream that is starting a business or has a business. For instance, I had someone introduce me to a young lady who's in Texas who, because of COVID-19, she hasn't been, the government has been shut down. They haven't been paying her. She won 2 new contracts and needed startup. So one of my clients called me and was like, hey, I would love to introduce you to such and such. She told me a little bit about her business. Then I went and did my own due diligence so I could make a decision whether we were going to loan her any money or not. And so I get that not everybody is going to be an entrepreneur. I understand that, but you still have the opportunity to invest in businesses. And I'm going to teach you how to be able to do that, because we get questions about that all the time. It's sort of like it's being like a Shark Tank.
Right.
You know, or what Marcus Lemonis does.
Yeah, you may not be an operator, but you can still be an owner through investment.
You can still be an owner through investments, or Marcus Lemonis does on The Profit, on the show The Profit.
One of my favorite
But
shows.
do your due diligence to be able to analyze the right opportunities. Just because somebody's coming to you and they're starting a business and they need startup money doesn't make them investable. Is that a word?
If it wasn't, you sure used it very good. So yes.
Doesn't mean that they're investable. Right. If Pookie don't know how to read his numbers, Pookie's not
don't
investable.
Mess with Pookie.
And so, and I wanted to share this information because I think it's paramount when we talk about starting Black Wall Street 2.0. Not everybody's going to be an entrepreneur. Black Wall Street, everybody was an entrepreneur, but they took their money. They did some key important things. They took the money that they made from outside of the community and they brought it back into the community. And so we talked about last week how the majority of the businesses doing the civil rights movement went out of business because the minute they started allowing blacks after the protests, they started allowing blacks to shop with them. They left all the black businesses that serviced them during the hard time when nobody else would service them, and they left them. So they went out of business because they didn't know. You know,
because
the white folk wasn't
coming.
You know, they wasn't coming to shop with them.
No.
And so, you know, I really want people to understand how to do their due diligence, and so I'm going to go through that. We're going to go over 30 minutes, but this is important. And so
we're already at 22.
Right. So, you know, I really want people to understand, what does it look like to do due diligence before making the investment. And so there are a number of questions. This is not all inclusive.
I was going to say, this is a whole nother Facebook Live right here.
This is not
it's a whole nother session.
It's not all inclusive, but I wanted to give people something to get started with and to start thinking about it. Right. And so, you know, whether you want to call yourself an angel investor or not. Rob has a client here. He walked him through his client with investing in somebody's startup lawn care business, right? And it panned out for him. He had the money. Dude needed it. They had an agreement. Rob, actually, you did the agreement for him, didn't you?
Did the agreement for him, and I also analyzed the books for the company that he was investing in.
If you don't know how to read the books, find somebody who does, so you're not losing your money. But
like you said in the beginning, numbers don't lie. People do.
And listen, anybody can create anything in Excel. Don't take no Excel spreadsheets. But number one is, does the management team have the skills to execute the idea? Do they have the skills to even execute the idea? So in a perfect world for investors, startups, you know, the management personnel are the alchemists, if you will, who turn their entrepreneur ideas into the goal. Right? And so in reality, management teams are often unable to unlock the full potential, but do they have people around them that can help them do it? You don't have to be the smartest person on the team, but you need to know who's going to make up his team. Anytime
you invest in a business, you're investing in that team because that business is built off of that team.
Right.
So you're investing in people. Right. So yes, you better get to know the people that you're going to be investing in.
Yeah, important. You know, but again, no one with the acumen for numbers to look at their bottom line, if you don't know what that looks like, they're going to be struggling. You got to hire somebody. And so number two, are there plans to fill the gaps on the team? And so, you know, I do this a lot with corporations that I work with, especially nonprofits, right? At such an early stage, a lot of times you can't afford to hire great
Right.
people, but and the gaps are apparent. And that's completely normal. But how confident can you be that the necessary gaps will be filled when needed?
Right.
Like, do you have Solomon? I tell people this all the time. Solomon asked for skilled people. He did not ask for faithful people.
That's right.
That's
There's
one
a
of the biggest
huge
mistakes
difference.
that churches make. Sister such and such is faithful. She comes to church 50 million times a week. So we're going to get her to do Facebook marketing.
Woo.
And she barely knows how to log into Facebook. She you didn't ask her if she knows anything about how to do analytics, how to retarget people,
Yes.
or nothing. She just faithful.
So I'm not beating up the church here because I love the church, but why is the
Are you
church
sure?
the only one who does it that way? You go out in corporate America, you're not getting the job based on your faithfulness.
I was getting ready to say something, but I'm not.
Okay. So moving on, I don't want you to park there.
That's right.
Number 3.
Number 3. Do the founders get along?
Ooh, that's good.
We learned this.
Yes, we have. Oh, yes, we have.
So Rob and I have a agreement that we would not do business with
Family and friends.
And so, do the founders get along? Like, make sure you go in business with married couples. We went in business before. We bought a asset-based lending company with 2 other couples, and we're the only couple that's still together. And so, whether you realize it or not, when you go into business with other people, you need to make sure. And if they don't have strong marriages, you better make sure your bylaws outline.
What's going to happen?
Ask me how I know.
Yep.
And so no one wants to be in a ship headed in choppy waters.
Yeah.
Right? Because it matters.
Not
And
a
so,
recipe for success.
right. Given most startups will be trying to, show their best side to you as the investor. Look for the little hints that everything may not be rosy and peachy keen.
That's right.
Does the
And
team
when people show you who they are, believe them.
And so, number 4, does the team understand its market?
Especially nowadays, because markets change. I mean, we're right in the middle of it right now, right? You look at pre-COVID-19
Right.
versus where we're going to be when there's a quote-unquote vaccine for this. There will be a shift in the way business is done like we have not probably ever seen before.
Right. And
So you better get ready.
that's what I was talking to someone today. I wouldn't invest in a brick and mortar. I wouldn't
Brick and
invest in
mortars.
anybody who was getting a brick and mortar
Right.
because, just the shopping, how consumers shop now has changed. And that's why you see so many malls that are empty. But does the team understand its market? And so misreading the market could be disastrous for a business,
Yes, it could be.
and your investment also. And so some entrepreneurs will be looking to do something innovative, right, in a market. And they've already been entrenched, or it's already a very saturated market.
Yep.
Why would you want to go into it? Or not to say that you don't have to, but how will you make yourself stand out in a saturated market? Which is one of the things we go over inside of Born to Multiply. But either way, you have to understand your markets, because the market will tell you what it wants. I'm a firm believer in that. And so
Your clients are always talking.
your clients are always talking. Number 5, is the team adaptable to change? If COVID didn't show us anything else, it showed us that we have to be adaptable to change. And so business is not linear.
Right.
And so if you think that you're investing in a business and it's going to be a straight line, you are in for a rude awakening. It looks like this.
All over the place.
All over the place. So business
All
is
over
not
the place.
linear. So understand that when you want, when you're considering investing in somebody's entrepreneurial endeavors, that it's not a straight line. And so really the path to entrepreneurship rarely follows the initial business plan exactly.
Yeah.
And to be honest, with our businesses, we've never done a business plan.
No, because probably no sooner than the ink dried on the paper after we printed it out, there was a change that
There
needed
was
to
a
be
change.
made. Yep.
We made the kids do a business plan though when they were.
I think we were just trying to keep them busy.
Don't tell them that.
It worked. It worked.
It worked. And so things change. So you have to be adaptable to that. Unforeseen challenges and changes, unexpected, breakthroughs can lead to different directions. And so can can the business pivot, right? Or will they just be breaking down in the corner, sucking on their thumb somewhere when something like COVID-19 happens? What is
emerging?
You need to know what's their motivation, what's their story behind the business that they're starting. Do you detect goals from the person being passionately pursued, that aren't simply just money oriented? If you're going into business strictly just for money, you're going to have a rude awakening. And so entrepreneurs chasing profits alone could suffer burnout, before the exit plan actually comes into fruition. And so, in order for you to have a real positive impact, you want to make sure, are they really passionate about this, or is this just a good idea for them?
That's a great point.
And this is important. Number 7, are other members, that they have, but do they have true buy-in from other people that will be helping them out? And so failure to retain talent, the right talent, is important in business. It's important. Let's see. Another one is, what's the market context? This is a good one. Some of the most, alluring opportunities, right, or the ones that really shine out for investors include those involving businesses, one, that are entering a market in the center of, like a rapid across the board growth.
Okay.
That's when they go in. Normally when companies want to grow, they go in, they look for investors. You want to know how fast they've been growing.
Right.
Targeting a market that is absolutely ripe for disruption. Right. We have a lot of disruptors. Elon Musk disrupted the car industry.
He's continuing to disrupt.
He's continuing to disrupt. He, spaceships and,
SpaceX
even solar energy, lighting.
That's
he
right.
was a saving grace for Puerto Rico, when Puerto Rico was hit by the hurricanes. And so, targeting a market that is absolutely ripe for disruption, and so you want to look at that, and then creating an entirely new marketplace. Right. And so, backed by customers' demand for something. That's what I would say.
Again,
and so,
the market tells you what they want.
Again, the market tells you what they want. So if you want to invest in other businesses or startups, this is some of the things you should be listening to. Here's another one. Is the lifetime value of customers significantly greater than the cost of acquiring them?
If it's not, then you shouldn't be doing business.
If it's not, then
because you're going to be losing money.
To be honest, when I am doing discovery calls, babe, with people, and I ask them, business owners, before I take them on as clients, what's your customer acquisition cost? They don't know. I could probably count on my hands how many times somebody has been able to
give you a good answer.
Give me a good answer for that.
Wow.
And so I don't know how they're coming up with their profit margins if they're not putting this in there too. But is the lifetime value of the customer significantly greater than the cost of acquiring them? You need to know what those costs are. And so if the lifetime value of the customers, is long enough, or if it's not long enough, it may not be profitable. And so that's why.
At which point you don't need to invest your money.
Right. So, this is a red flag if they don't know their numbers. How big is the potential market? You want to be able to ask them this. Okay, how big is the potential market that you're targeting? Do your own homework as well as listening to the company's own assessment. There are many, market sizing methods that actually can be used, but these are the 3. I'm going to give you the top 3. The total addressable market, normally called the TAM, T-A-M, which is the entire possible market for a product or a service, right? The entire sector of it, not just one part. Not just if African Americans are or Asian Americans are your ideal client. I have a girlfriend who we were in a mastermind together, and she only wants to take on other Asian women as her clients. And so that's not the whole entire, female market inside demographic inside of the U.S., but she's picking a section because that's where she's creating her blue ocean. The serviceable available market, called the SAM, which looks really at demographics. And so like our demographics are African American women, married women,
And some men.
And some really smart men. It's growing. And then if they share the market, it's called SOM, the outline. And if they're looking for investors, they should know what that is. If
They
not,
want you to say the question about the lifetime customer again. I think that was right. Is the lifetime value?
is the lifetime value of customers significantly greater than the cost of acquiring them?
Yep.
And so you want that customer to bring in more money to you than what it's costing you to acquire through marketing.
Right.
That
Facebook
particular
ads,
Facebook
and print
ads,
media,
yeah.
and all those things.
And so that's really what that means. So is the lifetime value of the customer significantly greater than the cost of acquiring them?
Good deal.
Okay, we talked about how big is the potential market. Is there any holes in the company's market expectations?
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is one Rob will shoot something down quick. He's a master at shooting holes. Look, I got a great idea. I'm going to run with it. Rob will break something down all the way apart and shoot holes.
And I'm not trying to be negative because I think.
Oh, I want to tell you
I'm not trying
something.
to be negative.
It is so important. I had a billionaire teach me this, and one of the things that Keith Cunningham, one of the things that he said, if you don't come up with all the negatives that can happen, you don't need to be in business.
That's good.
You don't need to be in business. And so
good.
everything is not hunky-dory.
Right.
What happens if X, Y, and Z happens?
You need to have a plan to be able to
You need to be
attack
able
it.
to have a plan.
Yep.
So are there any holes in the company's marketing expectations? You know, has the startup thoroughly investigated every aspect of its prospective market? Some considerations include how sustainable its marketing approach is and any potential changes in the market's future.
Yep.
Again, COVID-19 showed us
It's a game changer.
that you have to be able to pivot. And I felt sorry for the companies that were older who were on social media to learn how do I get in contact with my customers? They didn't have, we're really big. We have a new client that we've just taken on who was taking orders from his cell phone. Like people was sending him text messages or DMs, and that's how he was taking his orders every day, and he didn't have a system. And so
But understand, that's just based on the knowledge that he's operating within, right? Most business owners are good at that niche thing, right? Like if I make this bottle, I'm great at making this bottle and putting a label on it.
Right.
But I may not know how to distribute this bottle. I know how to manufacture it, but I may not know how to
which
distribute
is why that affects
the bottom line. It ends up costing you more.
It ends up
Absolutely.
costing you more. So you have to. You want to know what systems they have in place,
Yep.
you know, to be able to capture the data, the financial data that they need to capture.
So you can
if
follow
they're
up.
spending money on marketing and they're not getting people in and they're not turning into converted clients,
Yep.
then you have to be able to pivot. But if you don't have a system that is catching that information for you, you won't know. And so you're constantly wasting money doing something
Yep.
that's not really converting people. And
Yep.
so again, are there any holes in the company's marketing expectations?
Yep.
What are the financial projections? You know, investors
And are they realistic?
look, you see what this says in all caps. You know, and the next one are the financial. You know, what are the financial projections? Investors often look for a 5-year picture, right, on getting their money back, showing the conservative numbers expected. You know, some people may be more aggressively or not, but realistically, what's really important is looking at the break-even point.
Yep.
When do they expect to break even? If not already, when will they start to begin to be profitable?
That's right.
Because most people just break even in business. They don't understand the
Not for
numbers.
long.
And so another one is, what returns can I expect realistically?
Right.
Again, numbers don't lie, people do. And so established businesses will be able to provide, you know, like a trading history, a history of business for you and other evidence to back up their projections, you know, for your investment. But I am always amazed when people say, okay, I invested in such and such business. And I said, okay, well, what's your rate of return? What are you getting back? They don't know. Well, when are you getting it back? They didn't ask that either. And so, you know,
rule number 1.
you know, and then you want to know, how did the business come up with their evaluation? That's one of the questions that we ask. How did you come up with this evaluation? And so there are a lot of different ways that they can make those calculations, including there's something that's called the venture capital method that they can use, or the First Chicago method. But you want to know, how did they come up? You want to understand and research those, and then so you can understand how they made those evaluations. Yep. Another question, is there a genuine need for this new product or service that I'm investing in? If there's no need for, why am I going to do it? Yep. If not, then the company doesn't have the ability to be able to get the market share that it needs to pay you a return on your investment. Is the business scalable? This is something that you really want to look at, because scalability separates investable startups, they get that word again, investable startup opportunities from lifestyle businesses. Right. Very different, which are unlikely to deliver the level of returns that many investors expect. Yep. And so you need to know the difference between the two. Is the business scalable? Another question is, what will my capital be used for? Like, if you plan on, this is no lie. We once had a guy who needed $18,000, and when we asked him, what are you using the money for, he was like, because I would like to do some things.
Some of those things could include vacation.
That was his answer.
Who knows?
That's all he said. I want to do
need more details than that.
I want to do some things. Like
some capital equipment. Well, you putting it back into the business.
Are you putting it back into, not into a new luxury vehicle for yourself, but you need to know, what will my capital be used for? And so, in order for it to be investable, a new word, or investment worthy, the business should have clear plans for your capital that will ensure that it delivers maximum impact on the organization's development.
And you want to see those things show up too. You invest.
Right. You giving somebody money to buy some new equipment, and
the equipment never comes to fruition.
If it's 18 months and the equipment is still not in the road, we have a problem. Yep. And so it may be they want to use the money for marketing or HR or anything in between, but the company should know exactly where each dollar raised in the investment is going to be allocated.
Absolutely.
What other capital requirements does the business have? You want to know, how do they have other investors? And how many other investors do they have? Yep. Because those investors is going to get paid before you do, because their agreement or their investment predates your investment. So that's a very important question. Do you have other investors?
And have any of them gotten paid? Because if they haven't gotten paid, that might be a sign for you.
Right. So, taking on further capital could dilute your share and influence on the business. And so that's why you want to figure out, do they have more capital requirements? Do they have other investors beside you? Will they want more investors after you? You need to know this, again, because it could dilute your share and influence on the on the business.
This a whole nother.
I know.
This is a whole nother session. We're 42 minutes in. So.
Okay, I'm very close.
Okay.
So, is everything in place to make the business model function smoothly?
Yeah.
You need to know that. The business may provide you with a summary, of the model in a plan and form, but in action doesn't really work, right? Because sometimes what's on paper doesn't really translate to being functional in real life when you're running a business. And so another question is the company's distinctive offering defendable? Like, where possible, the business should have taken the steps to protect its product or service from being copied by competitors.
So we're talking intellectual property.
We're talking intellectual property. So any intellectual property should have been, adequately protected for, before you begin the process.
Yep.
Listen, before I come out with the names of my programs, I trademark them before I even say them on the stage. Yep. And that's another Facebook Live or why how I learned that lesson.
Protect your IP.
But again, yes, make sure that it is protected. How healthy is the cash flow in the business? Are there assurances that your investment is not merely a plug to a gap in the management of the day-to-day cost? Again, that I just saw that in that new movie, I guess The Boss with Tiffany Haddish. They didn't know their numbers, and she was afraid to tell her partner of how much they were spending in their day-to-day costs. But again, when will liquidity occur? Like, you want to know when you're going to get paid back. How well is the product or service received so far from other people? You notice if you ever watch the show The Prophet, Marcus, he wants to show up when they launch, when they open the business. He wants to show up and he's asking questions and see how people are responding. What else can I offer as well as my capital, right? Any business investor wants to play an active role in helping their interests develop and grow. Some people don't, but I do. And so if you're one of them, consider how to, open the management team would be for your advice and interventions, right? Because we notice when we watch Shark Tank, a lot of times people want their money, but they don't want their knowledge that comes along with it. And so, again, and then the last thing I would say is everything else looks good. Does it pass the gut check? I can't tell you how many times we've had things that looked really, really good, opportunities that look really good to us on paper, but on the inside, the Bible says, let the peace of God rule as an empire in your life. And so if I don't have that peace that's ruling as an umpire, I'm not putting my money into it. And so if everything else looks good, again, does it pass the gut check? And so I didn't want to just come on and talk about, Black Wall Street. I wanted to give you something because, one, I think it's important that, we do have financial sovereignty. I think it's important that we do have financial independence. You should have known by COVID-19 that it is paramount right now. It's not even an option of whether you should be able to create other revenue streams in your life, but it's important for us to spend our money with each other
within our community.
That's one of the things that Black Wall Street did. Again, their dollar passed through within their community 19 times before it ever left out. And so everybody's not an entrepreneur inside of Black Wall Street. Everybody wasn't an entrepreneur. Can you stop shaking? Everybody is not an entrepreneur, but they take their money, from their jobs, and they made sure, that it was circulated within the Black community. And so it's important that we start spending money with each other. Don't be shady in your business. Operate your business with
highest level of integrity,
the highest level of integrity and customer service. Don't be shady Grady in your business. And then if you don't want to start a business, but you have some disposable income that you can invest in someone else's business, I wanted to be able to give you some guidelines that you could go off of that would help you out. And so that is what Black Wall Street is. The concept of it really was financial independence. And so these are things that can help you become financially independent. And so even if I don't want to invest in the stock market, right, because I don't feel like learning how to do it. I don't want a headache of starting a business. I don't want that, but I do want to be able to take my money, and multiply my money, and be able to leverage it, because you'll get more money than sitting in the bank, right? And so these are one of the ways that you can help people within the Black community is being a lender. We all confess it, the scripture, right? We should be that I'm the lender and not the borrower. But in order for you to be able to be the lender, you have to do your due diligence and make sure that it's a solvent company to be able to invest in. And so that's why I wanted to give you this education. And hopefully it will bless you and help someone else out. If you know someone that's thinking about investing, make sure that they watch this so they will know what questions should I be asking, what documents should I be looking for, right? Just because somebody comes to you and say that they prayed and they had a dream, and in the dream X, Y, and Z happens, okay, that is wonderful. But still, you want to be able to do your due diligence.
So in closing, I just wanted to share real briefly, sort of rewinding to the beginning and where we started and how Black Wall Street started as a concept in one man's mind, right? OW had the idea, went out and bought 40 acres and started building property. Well, understand, as he started building and that community started to grow and become profitable, of course, his Caucasian counterparts saw that success. Well, guess what? I want to encourage my Black brothers and sisters out there. What happened was his Caucasian counterparts began to copy the method that he was using to build Black Wall Street. So why am I saying this? The innovation that we have as Black people, the thinking out of the box, right? We create culture, we create community, we do all those things I need your innovation to shine now like never before.
Right.
Coming out of this pandemic, there will be and there are so many opportunities,
right.
but we need to be ready to take advantage of them.
Right.
So I challenge you to be the next OW Gurley. Take a concept, help build it so that people are standing in line ready to duplicate it. But then when they duplicate it, you franchise it so they pay you to duplicate
That's right.
it.
They pay you to duplicate it. And listen, this is one of the books that, am I holding up? Can you see it or did we stop?
No, I think you're good. We're just a
Okay.
little delayed. Yep, you're good.
This is one of the books that I love. I actually gave it away free to several people last year inside of our Relentless 7 group. But it's called Black Fortunes. And so it's the story of the first 6 African Americans who escaped slavery and they became millionaires.
Wow.
From slavery, they became millionaires. And so I love, love, love the stories in this book. I guarantee you, if you pick this book up, you won't be able to put this book down. I actually bought it on audio before I bought the hardback and listened to it. But it's a great book that gives you inspiration. We want to quit. One of the reasons people that we just don't have any staying power anymore. We're going to talk about that next week, because we're almost an hour in. So anyway, thank you guys for showing up. I appreciate it. And share this video.
Please do.
All right.
We love y'all. Be blessed.
Bye-bye.